emotional. I was upset, as most law enforcement officers were, as you were as well. And of course, I work off duty for a national magazine. I have a platform for that. And I believe wholeheartedly there are evil men hunting police officers down. We've seen it on TV. And I want to make sure officers across the country are prepared for that. And that was the context of the article. By no means should take away from what we've done here in the community throughout the years and what we intend to keep doing here in the community. I don't want it to take away from that because our work is far too important. I can tell you this, treating people with uncompromising respect is not mutually exclusive than being safe as a police officer. We can do both. We can. And that's what I have challenged my officers to do. To treat everybody with dignity and respect, as they too deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And they can also be safe. We can do both of those, and those don't have to happen in a vacuum, right? So that was the context of what I was writing. I certainly apologize for anyone that read anything else into that and got offended. That's not the desire here. We have worked tirelessly in Tulsa, and my chief has been a great advocate for our community. He's given me a lot of freedom to reach out to many of you, and I knew this was a big deal when my friend Representative Goodwin emailed me today. She said she was upset about it. She thought it was divisive. So you know what? If she says it, it was. It's just that simple. That's not what I want to portray, and I apologize about that.
Good evening. I am Walter, but actually I'm a junior. Can you hear me now? Yes. Maybe I need to rip it a little bit. Lean into it. Okay. My name is Walter Bassett. I'm actually a junior because I was named after my father. That is who I am. What I do is I'm a police officer for the city of Tulsa. I've been that way for some 35 years, 6 months, 3 days. What time is it now? Over the course of that career, what I've always tried to do is be engaged with the community and the public and further the relationship between law enforcement and the police department. Coming on the department on the heels of turbulent 60s and 70s, want to change the dynamic of what we saw. That has been what our efforts have been directed toward, always being engaged. And when I first saw some of the dialogue and narrative that was going on over some very sensitive subjects, what my hope was is that our sensitivities didn't overcome our sensibilities. And that we could go further than where we were. I think a lot of times what happens is people talk at each other instead of to each other. When I was talked to about this deal, my whole purpose was that if it moves the dialogue, if it moves the narrative to where we actually are talking to each other and seeing what we can do. It's not a shame to be where you are, but it is sometimes if that's not where you want to be, it's a shame to stay there. And so that's the hope of this. Thank you.
Excuse me, I get over a cough. My name is Vic Regalado. I'm the newly elected Tulsa County Sheriff. First of all, I want to thank Devon for inviting me. I want to thank the Greenwood Cultural Center for holding this and supporting this. And I think I mimic most of what was said up here. Getting together and talking is much better than getting out there and fighting and people getting hurt and people losing lives. But it boils down to accountability. Right. And at the end of the day, and I've said that this is about the 5th or 4th gathering that I've been to, and I try to stay consistent in terms of how I represent the sheriff's office. And accountability is the biggest word. I've attended all of these as opposed to sending one of my deputies or an undersheriff because I think it's important, especially being the newly elected sheriff, to show up at these. And if I'm going to preach community engagement, then I think it starts from the top. And that type of sensitivity, community engagement, that starts to resonate with the rest of the sheriff's office and with law enforcement as a whole. So I think it's important to take that step and be the person that spearheads that. That being said, the one thing that I've seen in all of these is that the majority of you here, if not all of you, are here to talk this out, to figure out what is the best way to solve some of the issues that we are facing in our communities, in our law enforcement, and how we work together. And there will always be the naysayers. And there's naysayers in the white community, the Hispanic community, the black community. And you know what? It's time to stop giving them a voice, but giving you a voice. And that's important because this type of voice is what leads to solving problems. And I've seen it happen in 22 years with the Tulsa Police Department, and we're not perfect. I've seen it starting to happen with the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office. We're by no means perfect, and neither are anybody in the community. I think we can all agree the last perfect being to walk this earth was our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and we certainly aren't Him. But we certainly can try to be like that, and again, I'm proud to be here. I'm honored to be a part of this, and I too am overwhelmed by the attendance here. I've gotten to run into a lot of friends I haven't seen for a long time, and so I'm certainly appreciative of that. But again, I would encourage us to continue doing this, and there's a reason why we haven't had that type of stuff that you have seen across the nation lately happen here in Tulsa. And there's a reason for that, and we'll get into it as we move on further into this program. But I'm certainly proud to be a part of it, and thank you very much.
My name is David Phillips. I'm an assistant public defender here in Tulsa for the Tulsa County Public Defender's Office. I've been an attorney for over 26 years, and I have probably cross-examined more police officers than you have ever met in your life. I am deeply saddened by the events that bring us here today. But this is an opportunity to dialogue, and it's an opportunity to act. A lot of times we talk a lot, but we never get to the action portion of that. I will say this. I can think of no more powerful person in the United States than a big cop. That man puts his life on the line every day to protect and serve. In all the years that I have served as a public defender, 99% of those individuals that I've met and have cross-examined are honorable men and well deserving of your praise and of your accolades. But in any population, there's a subgroup of individuals that must be and need to be rooted out. That doesn't mean that all cops are bad. And that does not mean that all defendants are angels. Okay? And, now's not the time for inflammatory or words or rational thinking. It's time for people to be level-headed and clear-eyed. We need to have a deliberate determination to solve the problems that face our community. And how do we solve those problems? We come together as a community. Black and white, police officer and citizen. And we work through the problems that we have. And I know that there are wonderful ideas out there. And I know there's been a lot of studies that are done. But it's time to put those ideas in action. And it's time for us to heal as a nation. Thank you.
introductions. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. So this is really the crux of what we're talking about is police and community relationships. So we have a question from that section. You all, if you put on your email address last week and your email address was legible, then you got to email these questions. I got 44 emails that sent back, so somebody needs to work on their handwriting. But here we go. This is from the police community relationship section. Okay, I'll stand up. I think I hurt my ankle on the way in, so I'm gonna stand like this, like that. Okay. Community policing seems to be effective in neighboring states. Are there any reservations with implementing community policing here? If so, why? If not, how long will it take to implement? And so these questions are for the law enforcement officials. So we're going to do Yates, Busby, and Regalado for this question. Yes? Starting right here.
Community policing is, as I think everyone knows, one of the most important things that we can do in law enforcement. We don't have our community, we don't have the trust from the community, and we don't have a relationship with the community. We can't even solve crimes. I don't want to blow anyone's ideas out of how good we are, but we don't solve any crimes without you. It's just that simple. And we must have you to be a part of that. And what does community policing look like right now in the Tulsa Police Department? Well, I can tell you from the Gilcrease Division, what I can speak from is in the last 18 months, we have conducted over 260 community events. That's everything from attending a school to what I did yesterday. I spent 2 hours with Joycelyn. I think Joycelyn's right there. Raise your hand, Joycelyn. You don't want anybody to know who you are, but I spent 2 hours with Joycelyn and 3 kids that were fearful of the police. And we can't have that in Tulsa. And these were good kids. They're never going to encounter police officers in a negative light, but they're watching the news and they're seeing all this stuff going on. So we brought them up to the division and spent 2 hours with them. I had a panel of officers. It wasn't as big as this one, but it was. We had a panel of officers to talk to them and get them a tour. And I just flat out told them when it was over with that we needed them. We need them to become police officers. And I think we have done a very good job in that area. Like I said, I'm proud of the fact that we've conducted 260 community presentations in 18 months. We're working hard towards that. But where I want to see that move towards is ingraining that on the streets of our city. And there's a couple of issues with that. First issue is resources and staffing. It takes a lot more to do that. But we've done that on a small scale already at the Gilcrease Division. Some of you are familiar with our downtown impact team that went into downtown about 2 years ago when downtown was just exploding with growth. And they went in and they met all the businesses, they met all the residents, they passed out their business cards, they set up a special email for them to contact them, and they stayed down there getting to know everybody. We were able to reduce crime significantly in that area, and really that's a shock considering as many people coming into downtown. More people you have in an area, the higher the crime usually is. So they really defied the odds on that. We were able to do that with low resources, and I've been wanting to expand that into the division. In fact, last August, I spoke with Regina Gilman specifically about the idea behind that, and we just had a horrible staffing issue. I'm working with less than, well, I'm not going to say here because I just don't want that out, but we're not working with the staffing that we need in our division. But that's about to change somewhat. Not only is it we're going to get a little more added staff with the new academy class about to graduate, but we're also about to hire, as you know, more officers. Now, I don't want to wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, nor do you. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement the same downtown program into a neighborhood in North Tulsa. And it's not a surprise. I'll tell you exactly what it's going to be. The highest crime rate in our division is between 51st Street North and 61st Street North from Cincinnati to Hartford. It breaks my heart. Violent crime rate is approximately 6 or 7 times more in that area than the rest of our division. And we have a lot of good men and women up there that are just almost victims of this. And we're just tired of that. And so we've been doing our typical police strategies, trying to stop that, but we're going to implement community policing into that section, and we're going to drive that crime down. I'm looking forward to that. And we need to take that further. And we need to implement this in the minds and ideas of all of our police officers. And it's not an easy task, but it's something that is on all of our hearts to do.
Okay, thank you. Captain Busby.
The theory and concept of community policing involves a partnership that is developed between law enforcement and the community to address issues of crime, but also quality of life issues. And so to that extent, what we have to develop, if it's still the narrative of do we have it and when will it be in place, there has to be that dialogue that occurs that says, this is what we mean by this and this is what we're looking for to develop that partnership. We have to talk to each other. As Travis says, we can't do this by ourselves. We're counting on the community to not only be our eyes and our ears, but to be also our mouth, because they've got to speak to tell us what's going on, because they know what's going on in their communities. And to the extent that we develop that partnership and that relationship where we can do things and talk about things that better their community, we need to move toward that and not get hindered by semantics and narrative and dialogue, but actually work on the partnership and developing that and putting that in place. And so to the extent that the community is seeing and saying, we want this and we need this, we have to start to engage and talk about, well, exactly what does that mean? What does that look like? The relationship has to be one more of than just showing up when there's a problem. It is much better to have that ongoing relationship where we see each other outside the norms of our business relationship, which is we're responding to a particular issue. Most of the time when we show up, it's not really a good day. And so what we have to do is to change that dynamic to where you see us and it is a good day and it is a good thing. And we have those conversations, we have that dialogue, and we're talking outside of the normal extent of being just confined to a call. So those are the things that I would say that we need to do in furthering the development and setting that framework for what community policing is and having that narrative discussion between the community and the police departments to start to develop that.
Thank you. Sheriff Regalado.
And everything that Captain Buzz and Major Yates, obviously agree with, and that's all part of community policing. I want to take it just a step further, though. I think the very core thing that oftentimes gets lost in this whole community policing idea is that it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. Yes, it's incumbent upon us as law enforcement officials to engage the community, no doubt about it. And that's been one of the priorities as I took office of the Sheriff's office, was again, community engagement, getting out there, being at different festivals and things like that are in the communities and represent those certain communities. And that's all fine and good. Those are things that are easy to do. As a law enforcement officer, communication really is the core skill that you should have to be successful as a cop, as a deputy. And so getting out there and doing those things, those are fun because we hand out toys and we hand out things like that. But let's get to the serious business, okay? Let's talk about the two-way street, the accountability. Could you imagine, look around you today, okay? Because of recent events, we've gathered here today, and we've put law enforcement officials up here on the stand, and I don't mean that in a negative way, okay? But on the panel, there you go, okay? The judge liked that, though. and it's, and it's not difficult. Getting in front of people is always, can be problematic sometimes, especially when you know some of them don't feel real happy with you right now. And that's okay. What I'm getting at is that, can you imagine if you fill this auditorium up and put the people that are committing crimes in your community and made them answer up? That's community policing, because you know what? We get out there, we do our jobs, and Major Yates touched on it about staffing. I can talk all day about staffing problems at the Sheriff's Office, and we can get out there and we can do what we can do, but guess who's out there all the time? En masse. You are in the community. And if you put that same energy and pressure and assistance with the police in dealing with what is truly affecting all of our communities, crime, I'm telling you, we're not here today. And that's something that I think everyone needs to ask themselves. You cannot simply point that finger without having one pointed back at you. And so that's the thing that I hope that we can get out of this, is that this is not incumbent community policing does not mean law enforcement, what can you do for us today or tomorrow? It's what can we do for each other? And I think once we can all answer that honestly, I think we're going to make great strides. And I'll tell you, we've done it here in Tulsa. Chief Jordan has brought it up before, and unfortunately it was under the worst of circumstances. But there was no better form, shape of community policing than what occurred on the Good Friday shootings. And it was a horrific time, but I can tell you that on the back end, having seen what occurred between the community and the police during that time was awe-inspiring, and I truly mean that. And it's hard to get that across to you if you weren't there and you didn't experience it, but for those of you that were intimately involved and around that time, the positive of all that was it was amazing to see the partnership in which police and the community worked in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those answers. We're going to move on to a question for the entire panel. Originally it says, what role does the city manager play in race relations in Tulsa? But I think this is a question that all of the panelists can answer. And when you answer the question, please try to keep your answer to 2 minutes. And instead of city manager, like what role does the city manager play with race relations in Tulsa? Let's say, what role does the police or the public defender or the prosecutor, the U.S. Attorney's Office? Because I think that we are saying things, but we're not saying the thing, right? We're not actually saying, we use things in Tulsa. Thank you. We use the word in Tulsa. I noticed this when I moved here. We say North Tulsa when we mean Black Tulsa. We say, we use like coded language, right? When people talk about, not that anyone on the panel has done this, but dog whistle racism. So we have these things where we're kind of saying something, but we're not really saying something. So if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about how there are race relation problems in the city. And so, and also I want you all to know that all of the questions are not on here. There were questions about our community. There were a lot of questions, especially in the policy group, right? There were some people in my group who had questions. What do we do? So today, for this question, what role does your office or you in particular play in ameliorating race relations in the city of Tulsa? And we can start on this end with Mr. Phillips, and let's try to keep our answers between 2 to 3 minutes.
Thanks for the question. I do want to push back a little bit on the sheriff here about community policing. The president did a commissioned a 21st century policing policy commission, and the number one thing on that list was building trust in the community. Before we can get to that dialogue coming back into the community, I think the first of all is that we've got to restore trust. The way that you restore trust is that you have to have several things that are in place. As a public defender, we hold the justice system accountable. Our goal is to make sure, first of all, that our clients get adequate representation and they get the best representation that they can. But it's to make sure that the police officers dot their I's and cross their T's. It's to make sure that your rights as a citizen are not infringed upon. And when your rights are protected, because then you can feel confident in the system. Now, I agree with the sheriff on the fact that we had a great community coming together with the Easter Friday shootings. We also had, I think, a similar moment when we had the Bates trial, where we began to hold people accountable, officers accountable for their actions. And until the community can believe that no matter whether you put on a badge or whether you wear blue jeans, that you get the same type of justice and the same type of representation and the same type of respect that the police officer does and the guy on the street corner does. We're not going to have that trust.
That's what's good about these talks, because I'm going to counter what David here said. No, I do, to say that anything's perfect, again, nothing is perfect. Okay, but the trust, time and time again, and I've worked in North Tulsa, I've worked everywhere in the city, predominantly in North Tulsa. And the one thing that I always heard just in passing on QTs, what have you, was people telling their kids that when you get lost, look for a guy or a gal in this uniform or this uniform. So we can tell our children to trust police, but somehow we don't trust them. Now I get it. Again, let me preface this. We're not perfect. We've made mistakes. We acknowledge it. And let me tell you something more. Since, like Devon said, let's get to the brass tacks. I can tell you that when an officer or a deputy or anybody in law enforcement screws up and does something that goes against that code of honor and that core function of what we do to serve and protect, there's nobody, I'm telling you, there's nobody that's more, that critiques it, that condemns it more than the fellow officer, blue, tan, or what have you. That's a reality, okay? And so to say that, you should give us your blanket trust, no, that's something that's earned. Trust is earned in everyday life, and whether you're in uniform or not. I would venture to say that there's plenty of you in the crowd that don't trust each other. There may be a reason. You got to earn that trust in one way or another. But where I do agree with David is that if you at least have that mutual respect, and same with us, we can work past the other issues. But I can tell you that no more than what you saw in Dallas, when you saw police officers getting killed, protecting the very ones that were being critical of them, should show you right then and there that the core of law enforcement is to serve you. Period. It's not perfect, nor will it ever be. But if you will remember that, I think that from your standpoint, that's that two-way street again, then you'll have a better understanding when things happen across this great nation of ours. And on the flip side of that, we must always stay in tune with your concerns, with the issues that you have with your police department or sheriff's office, and we need to open our ears to it and listen, and when appropriate, take action on that on your behalf. And when we understand that, things will be much better.
Yes, let's try to keep our, because we're running out of time. We got plenty of questions. I don't know if this is a tactic of y'all to have long answers, so we don't have to answer more questions. But I'm not going to let you get away with it. So, okay, let's keep it moving. They took up y'all's time, so y'all want to get 1 to 2 minutes, so go ahead.
You didn't take any of my time, did you?
You should have trusted him to be sure to raise his answer.
All right, I'm going to trust the clock not to start until I finish. So. One of the things I've always said is that the police department is a service industry. We provide a necessary service. We are really the first line of municipal government that most people ever see or deal with. And so to that extent, the services that we provide should be provided in a manner that is fair, equitable, and leaves folks pleased with what we have done and how we have interacted in them. To the extent that that doesn't occur, then we've got to be open and receptive to that. I believe, and I've always believed that we as a professional law enforcement should be above reproach, but never above question. So the fact that folks have questions and they raise questions shouldn't offend us. Again, that goes to the sensitivities and sensibilities. And so to the extent that we further the dialogue and we're always willing to talk and discuss, and that we always treat folks in a fair and equitable manner,